Hey everyone, it's Brandon here with Front Page Pop, bringing you all the latest in celebrity news and reality TV. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Jeana Turner. She is from America's Next Top Model Cycle 24, and she is the runner-up of that show, and also a model in her own right outside of the show, as well as the owner of House of Anomaly and a beautiful mother and all the things. So, welcome, Jeana. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I've heard a lot about you.
Yes.
I've seen a lot about you.
Hopefully, good things.
All good things, all good things.
Well, we are going to dive into all things America's Next Top Model, including a lot of the controversy and discussion around the new Netflix ANTM documentary, plus the one you have coming up that you're featured in, Dirty Rotten Scandals on E! March 11th. I'm so excited for that, for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm,
That will
I'm
be,
excited, but my nerves are like,
yeah, sure. Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. I want to kind of start with your journey before we dive into all the things. So, had you watched America's Next Top Model before? And if you did watch any of the previous seasons, did you have any favorite contestants or seasons?
yeah, so I did watch America's Next Top Model before being on it. I know a lot of girls didn't. I would say I was a top model super fan, but at the same time, when it came out, I was only 10 years old. I had just turned 10.
Hmm.
Which was also the same year that I lost my hair. So I had like a different attachment to that show, I think, than most people. I never wanted to be a model as a kid. If you ask my family now, like, did they ever see me being a model at some point in life? They would literally all tell you no. I have very minimal childhood photos. I was terrified of a camera. I was so convinced that a camera flash stole your soul. Someone told me that when I was a kid. And
Okay.
so from that point forward, I was terrified of a camera. So I just would never take pictures. And anytime I saw a camera, I would literally run and hide. So it's honestly a miracle that I modeled to this day because it
Yeah.
honestly, as a kid, you would have never guessed that. But I think that I was kind of just so fascinated with the world of America's Next Top Model, and also at the time the emphasis on oddities being considered beautiful. And
Mhm.
I was just growing through a stage where something so odd, alopecia, was happening to me. And everyone around me was telling me it wasn't beautiful. And kids are mean. I was in elementary school at the time. So I was told constantly that I was ugly and I looked like a boy and, just baldy and just the weird, hurtful things that people say to you as a kid, and the
Yeah.
way you digest that. So I was really convinced that I was ugly and I was odd. And so to see Tyra and America's Next Top Model put emphasis on, odd beauties, I was like, okay, well, like, this is just something I'm going to watch in my bedroom every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on UPN or CW or whatever it was on at the time. And I didn't tell my
Yeah.
family watching it. I just was like doing my homework, but watching America's Next Top Model at the same time. And as the years went on, I was like, you know what? I kind of think I want to do this. And I had started to hear from people. It started to turn from like, you're ugly to like, you look weird to like, oh, you look kind of unique. And
Hmm.
I heard unique as a term used a lot on America's Next Top Model. So I was like, okay, maybe that's a place where I belong, is modeling. Okay, so if I had to think back to like the early days of America's Next Top Model, I would say right off the bat, Mercedes was,
Yes.
I think, by far one of my favorite contestants. And I think I had an emotional connection to her because she struggled with lupus and hair loss. And I think as a little kid, she's mixed and she's so beautiful. And I saw myself in her so much. And I was just like, okay, definitely obsessed with her. And then I would say Eva Marcel for
Yes.
sure. Yeah, Eva, and again, it was also emotional connection because she was short, and I knew I was going to be short. I knew I wasn't going to be
Yeah.
5'9". So, and then also her being mixed, and so I was just like, you know what, those two girls at like the very beginning, by far my absolute favorites.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that for sure. Two
Yeah,
icons from the show.
yeah, for sure.
So, moving to cycle 23,
Mhm.
we have the show moved to VH1, and we have Tyra kicked out as the host, and they put in Rita Ora. And then, of course, your cycle, cycle 24, was after that. So, had you seen cycle 23, and did you expect when you came for 24 to see Rita? Were you surprised it was Tyra? What was that like?
Yeah, so I did watch Cycle 23, but it wasn't like the diehard like ANTM fan I was beforehand. I had kind of like disassociated with the show for a few seasons. I kept on it up on it here and there, but especially for Cycle 23, number one, I was a full-time beauty student going to Paul Mitchell, so I couldn't watch it as much as I wanted, and my world was so different. I was in a different world of beauty and fashion. So I wasn't modeling. I took time off of modeling, so I didn't invest in the show the way that I did previously. But when I did notice that it was Rita Ora, and no shade to her, like love her music and everything, but I think for me it was kind of like, oh, Tyra's not there. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like meh. And also it was kind of like, why Rita Ora? Like she has her own, you know, she's an icon in fashion in her own way, but I think that there's other people who probably could have been put in that position, I guess. So for me, that took a bit of credibility away from the show. I was like, I don't really want to watch it if Tyra's not there. Like the whole reason most of us watch it is because of Tyra. And
Right.
then as we fast forward to my show, at the very end of Cycle 23, I watched the finale. And the finale, I believe, was the last week that I was in beauty school.
Okay.
And so I remember at the very end, it was like, want to be on America's Next Top Model? And I was under the impression that after Cycle 23, it was canceled. I didn't think
Mhm.
that there was going to be a Cycle 24. I don't think anyone did. And so when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I'm done with beauty school. I don't want to work in a salon. I don't want to work for anyone. I just wanted to be a celebrity makeup artist. That's pretty much my focus at the time. And so I was like, I can't just jump back into modeling because I took a year and a half off for being in school full time. And I can't just go back to work. So I guess this would be like a good jump start to like get back into modeling. And I was like, why don't I just apply? And
Yeah.
I kind of came into America's Next Top Model in a way that I think most people didn't. And this is a big secret, and I probably shouldn't share it, but I'm going to. Um, so at the time, Tyson Beckford, ever since I did Playboy a long time ago, I was like
Mhm.
19 years old, I think, when Tyson Beckford had first like reached out to me and started flirting with me.
Oh,
After Playboy, I was super young and I was like, damn, Tyson Beckford? Like, okay. Um,
hello.
and so at the same time, Tyson Beckford and Keith, the first male winner of America's Next Top Model, who everyone
Mhm.
says they look alike, they oddly enough both started reaching out to me at the same time on social media, being very flirty.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I was just like, and I was engaged at the time. I had been engaged for like 5 years. And so I was like, you know what? Let me use this opportunity to kind of get my foot in the door or at least find out a contact instead of
Mhm.
doing this the hard way and not getting an answer. I had applied way back for the first Guy Girl season and didn't hear anything back. Same girl, same story, same everything. And,
Right.
they passed on me. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it again. And I knew I was kind of coming around to the idea of me sharing myself bald, but that's not how I came into it the first time. So I was like, I think I'm a different person for them to kind of look at, I guess. And I was like, let me just try, shoot my shot. And so I flirted enough to get some contacts. and
Perfect.
and then of course I cut them off after. But I got a direct contact to the very first casting director for America's Next Top Model, and right away she kind of like thrusted me into like, you're going to be in the house. Here's the paperwork. I didn't really have the like in limbo of like, I don't know if this is going to happen for me or not. They did tell me. And then as far as my season, I'm assuming, of course, I'm like that Rita Ora is probably going to be the judge, but I was like, you know what? Let me just take the opportunity.
Yeah.
And during my Skype calls to confirm me being a contestant, the casting director had told me that Tyra Banks was coming back. And so I was just like, okay, now I really want to do it. So I kind of knew she was going to be there, I think, before everyone
Yeah.
else knew that she was going to be there. Yeah. And that was like, that sealed the deal for me, because if it was anybody but Tyra, I probably wouldn't have done it, to be honest with you. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone can agree it definitely lost a little credibility. Like you said, no shade to Rita. She's awesome, but we all know it's Tyra, so
Yeah,
that makes
it's
sense.
her show. Like she says, it's her baby. Yeah.
So you walk into the casting that's filmed in front of the judges. You
Mhm.
get to meet them, they get to meet you, you get to share your story on camera. You talk a little bit about your history modeling and including modeling for Playboy, and then you discuss your alopecia as well. But they only show us the alopecia hair loss story. They
Mhm.
cut out a whole section of you sharing your story about modeling for Playboy, and you were kind of talking about it. You've talked before in interviews and in your YouTube about, telling Tyra sex sells. You said it yourself, like, don't judge me.
Mhm.
And she called you an effing prostitute or said you sound like one.
Mhm.
How did that feel? Just that first moment meeting your idol when you were so excited, learning that she was coming back, and you go in there and she says that.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the more hurtful things I've ever had someone say to my face,
Right.
completely unfiltered. And I think it was because I just didn't expect them to attack me for
Hmm.
it. I didn't expect them to necessarily praise me for it because it's such a controversial thing. Modeling nude is not something everyone is like fully on board with, right?
Sure.
But I think having, Tyra Banks and Ashley Graham in front of me, I don't think that I expected to be like scrutinized for it and definitely not slut shamed. Um,
Yeah.
and I
Girls
be,
rolling.
be very clear, I was only slut shamed by Tyra and the two male judges, Drew and Law. Ashley was actually very supportive of the whole thing.
Good.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know, it was really hurtful and it was just it was overwhelming for me. Here's the part that made it really uncomfortable for me. They started it with like, so you went from Tyra specifically says, you went from childhood modeling to like va va boom. And I'm like, well, like, what the fuck does that mean? Like,
Right.
what is ba ba boom? Like, okay. And I'm like, so I'm playing stupid on purpose because I want them to say Playboy. I don't want to be the one to say it because I know kind of how they like can play off of things that girls say. So I
Okay.
wanted them to be the ones to say it instead of purposely setting me up for failure by admitting whatever. And it wasn't even admitting. I mean, most of the interviews that I did, I was on set for Playboy when I was doing half of my like casting interviews through Skype with the casting director. So it wasn't something that they didn't know. So that's why I was
Yeah.
like, why aren't you saying it? This is weird. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then Ashley Graham goes, like, and I was just like, oh, in my head, I'm like, oh, they're talking about Playboy. And I'm not
Yeah.
ashamed of it, but I'm just like
Right.
confused as to why I just won't talk about it. And so I was
Right.
like, and they keep beating around the bush, beating around the bush. And I'm like, are you referring to Playboy? And Tyra was like, yeah. And I was like, well, yeah, like I have done Playboy, multiple times. And, I'm short and this industry did not work for me to go into fashion. And I've made a career off of selling swimsuits and lingerie and having a sexy career. That's just what worked for me because I wasn't the height of a high fashion model and I didn't really know what to do. So that
Right.
worked for me. And sex sells, like that worked for me. And Tyra's like, her face kind of turned smug. And I looked at her, I'm like, I learned that from you. Like, do what works for you. That's basically what I was saying. And she's like, no, I don't like that. And she's like, you sound like a fucking prostitute. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
okay, whoa, number one. And then two, like, how does that sound like prostitution? Saying sex sells, that's come out of your own mouth. So in reality, have you sounded like a fucking prostitute? Like multiple times, then so have you. And like, I think I got really defensive about it because I mean, this woman has sold lingerie her whole life. Like all you've done is sold sex. That's all Victoria's Secret is. So for that to come out of her mouth, I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I started crying because after I said that, then I had multiple slandering things said back and forth to me. And like the one that really resonated was what Tyra said. But
Hmm.
I have two gay male judges saying things back to me and they're not attracted to women. So they're also on the side of Tyra and they're also under her thumb. So, and they've also got an earpiece that they're being told to say things to me by producers. I didn't know this at the time, but that's in reality what was happening. So of course they weren't supportive of what I was saying. And the only person that was supportive was Ashley. And when Tyra said that to me, I mean, I just started bawling and like defending myself. And I mean, I was just word vomit, trying to defend myself and just justify why I had done Playboy. And I remember telling them, like, I got to a point where I was just so frustrated. And I was just like, you know what? I think a lot of people have a skewed reality on why a girl chooses to do Playboy. And there's a negative stigma attached to the word Playboy, as if all of those girls are escorts or if all of them sell sex or all of them are porn stars or whatever. But for me, that is not my reality. I lost my hair at the same time that every other girl around me was getting boobs and also having a glow up and being told that they were so beautiful. Like, I didn't get to grow into myself. I didn't get to grow into being beautiful. And plus, dealing with childhood trauma at that same time, like, no one was around me loving on me and telling me that I was beautiful and that I was accepted. I was not in a space like that. So
Right.
I told them I had to go my own route to grow into my own femininity. Like, it wasn't for male acceptance. It wasn't for a bunch of fame and money and to be able to purchase a pair of red bottoms. Like, it wasn't for anything like that. It was for
Hmm.
myself. I did it for me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, while I'm saying that, Tyra had her arms crossed because she rolled her eyes at me and she would not look at me. And she just had her face down the table and she's leaning on the table with her elbows.
Hmm.
And I'm crying. And I tell everybody this, I've said this in so many interviews, but anyone who knows me personally knows that I do not cry when I'm sad. I cry like that when I'm fucking pissed. I have
Mm.
only ever cried when I'm mad. If I'm sad, I completely shut down, I get really quiet, and I'm almost emotionless.
Sure.
Um, People have told me that's a problem my whole life. But I definitely cry when I'm really angry. And so of course you see me bawling. And as I'm crying like that, Tyra uncrosses her arms and goes, "Now tell me about alopecia." Before I could even get my own thoughts together. And of course, after being yelled at like that, all I wanted to do was switch the topic. I don't even want to talk about Playboy anymore. Like, that's not why I'm here. That is a past accolade, that is a past credit. And that has nothing to do with why I'm here standing in front of you. And so, of course, I want to change the topic. And while I'm in the process of, trying to get my thoughts together, I'm still crying. So it sounds like I'm crying about alopecia. And I'm like, and I think you see a scene where it's like, it's hard to talk about. And that was me kind of trying to get myself back to a point of not crying. Um,
Yeah.
but I hadn't wrapped up my tears yet from the previous incident, so I couldn't just cut it off. And they make it like you have like 5 seconds in front of them, so you got to just say what you have to say. You only get, so much space and opportunity to speak on that show. So yeah, of
Yeah.
course I had to switch the topic and then all of a sudden talk about alopecia. And now the way I looked at it after watching it with everyone else was that I looked like the sob story of the season. And I told them I don't want to be the sob story of the season. I do not want to be the girl who is the underdog who everyone feels bad for because something tragic happened to her in her life and we're trying to make her feel beautiful. I did not want that fucking treatment at all. And I blatantly told them that when I first went in. And at that moment, I realized that that's exactly what they were doing to me,
Yeah.
which pissed me off even more. Um, yeah, and like the fucked up part about that is that it's not that the Playboy incident didn't get talked about or didn't air. It did, but they kept it quiet from the public up until like episode 14,
Hmm.
like up until the way end of the season to forcefully make the audience change their support and love for a girl that they fell in love with based off this sob story to now like, oh, she posed naked, so like she's not that insecure. Like, no, I never fucking was. I never was. I just wasn't ready for them to manipulate me with my past into my present
Hmm.
about my hair and my trauma. Like, those two things go so hand in hand with my story and America's Next Top Model.
Yeah. And we know, I mean, we can look back at it now a little bit differently with all the information that we have about all the contestants that are coming forward. But at the time, did you see it as like, okay, Tyra is a little like cuckoo because she was just able to switch it like that and go back to, so tell us about alopecia after like being mad about you, or were you like, okay, that's just TV, you didn't think about it, whatever?
To be honest with you, in that moment specifically, I didn't think about it because that was the very first time that those
Yeah.
an interaction like that had happened to me. So for me, I was like, yeah, that's a little bit odd, but like maybe she just was really offended by what I really said, and then she wanted to change the topic. Like, I didn't really know. And that, like, when it's your first time on TV like that, when it's your first time, dealing with production and a million crew members and 8 million moving pieces, and everyone's just telling you where to be and when to speak and sticking things on you and taking things off and putting you in rooms and isolating you. Like, there's so many moving parts that it really is so hard to hear your own thoughts. Like,
Mm.
It's so hard, especially when you're in the position of trying to chase a dream based on a one-off opportunity. Like
Right.
you're really not thinking about things like that. You're kind of just like, okay, let it go, on to the next thing, because you know that there's another thing
Yeah.
coming and another thing coming. So it's really easy to just turn a blind eye, I guess, to things like that. But
It's so
especially the first incident, yeah, you don't really notice it until a few times it happens, and then you're like, okay, wait, these motherfuckers are crazy. Like, there's
catch.
some weird shit going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that you made it into the house after that first interaction and their reaction to you doing Playboy?
I wasn't, only because they straight up told me that I was going to be a finalist in the house, like during, I mean, weeks before we had even gotten into the hotel, before cameras even
Okay.
came out. They told me, so I kind of already knew. But I did think that that interaction with her was potentially going to jeopardize me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, okay, going into the competition now, kind of fast forwarding towards the finale, there's the final three. So we have you, Christiana, and Kyla,
Yes.
all amazing and talented. What was going through your head at that moment when you were standing up on that runway stage?
When it was us three, to be honest, I was so exhausted. I didn't care what happened anymore. Honestly, by that point, I was so tapped out of being there. By that time, I had asked, gosh, at least 10 times, 15 times to go home. I was so over it. I was so over them playing with my emotions. I mean, I got eliminated, brought back, eliminated again, then saved. So technically brought back again for them to drag me all the way to the end like that and then finish runner up. And it's like, I didn't even just send me home. Like I really did go into the competition telling myself, I have a video of myself walking into what I call the rape van, but it's the white van that they take us all into in the hotel.
Yeah.
I have a video of me walking away from my own car to that car saying to my family, I have to give up my phone now and hopefully I come home runner up. This is before any cameras even came out. And so when
Wow.
people sit there and say things to me like, oh, you're just bitter because you didn't win. And it's like, no, anyone who, especially if you're a super fan of that show, you know, like, no offense, but there's so many of the girls who have won that I had hoped would go on to have like crazy, amazing fashion careers, right? But
Hmm.
history would tell you that they just
Yep.
disappear. It's the girls who were second place and third place who you see in a huge Target campaign or in Old Navy or Gap or, you know, something significant. So for me, I was like, yeah, I want to be runner up. I want to go all the way to the end and get as much screen time as I can and as much exposure as I can. But I
Yeah.
don't want to win. I don't want to be buried and I don't want to disappear like the girls that I've seen disappear. So, yeah, at that point, I was just like, you know what? I made it to the end. It was like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. It was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when we were standing on that stage. We had been up, yeah. I
Oh my
think
God.
I think Kyla was announced as the winner at like 4 something in the morning. I'm not
Oh
even kidding you. It was such a long day. And the reason why that happened was because we weren't actually supposed to have the finale on that day. It was actually supposed to be the following day, and they wanted to get us home. That was July 2nd was the day
Mhm.
that Kyla was announced as the winner, and they wanted to get us home the day before 4th of July. So they crammed in an extra day, July 3rd's day of filming, into July 2nd. So they kept us on that stage to do the finale. Like when they came to the back room with us three and they were like, the
Mhm.
winner, like we're gonna announce who's America's Next Top Model tonight, like that's happening right now. We were just like, what? Because they really told us it was gonna happen the following day. So we're just like, shit. Like we've been standing all day walking with these kids, walking on this runway that's grass, turf of all things, not even a hard floor. But we've been on
Yeah.
this since like 5 a.m. already. Like we're tired. We almost had a 24-hour workday that day.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. But I was over it at that point, not only because it was just late, but just because
Mhm.
emotionally I was so exhausted. And I think if you look back at a lot of those clips of me standing there, I think even right now, if you look at my face right now, I'm exhausted. I'm a single mom of 2-year-old twins. I am tired, right? I'm tired. If you look back at my face on that stage, I was just there is nothing. And I mean there was no I had nothing more to give those people. They would say
Yeah.
things to me and I was just like they talked about a golden shower. They said all these like sexual slandering terms to me at the very end. Yeah.
Mhm.
Saying something about, you know, I wouldn't save children in a burning building. I'd run in to go
Yeah.
saved my Hermes bag or whatever. And it's like, even still to this day, 8 years after America's Next Top Model, after modeling for huge brands, I still to this day don't even own a designer bag. So for someone to say something like that is so just like weird to me and off, and about my character is very off. And like when he said that, I was just like, okay, next, what other dumb ass shit is gonna come out of your mouth? Like, because I'm done. Like you can say whatever you want, but I'm done. I'm done giving you guys a reaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. I mean, that's crazy. I think as a viewer, it felt rushed too. Like you
Yeah.
said, they crammed it into that day because I'm like, why are they standing on an empty runway and they're like doing the finale there? I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, it was
So,
definitely very odd. Very odd. Mhm.
so was there ever a moment throughout the competition where you were like, okay, this is it. Based on that, I'm definitely not going to win, or based on this, I definitely think I got it in the bag.
Yeah. I think that moment came, gosh, I don't know what episode it would have been, but once we
Mhm.
eliminated the eighth girl and we had seven girls going into the next episode, Tyra goes, so I think usually when people are watching these episodes, I mean, we're hearing every week, you want to know what your prize package is? Before she announces whatever. And she's like, it's a contract with Revlon or Next or Vogue Italia or whatever it is, right? You're getting pitched this every single episode during the deliberation. We never heard any of that the entire time we were there until we got down to seven girls being in the judging room. And I
Wow.
remember every week we'd go home and they interview us every day. And I remember being like in the interview room, what's our prize package? And they were like, why do you keep asking? And I'm like, because I want to know what I'm competing for. Like, what am I here for? Like I want to know what the prize package is. Shit. Like, I'm
Right.
curious. I want to know how much money I'm getting. I want to know what magazine it's going to be. I want to know what the agency is. Like, I'm trying
Right.
to understand what's going on. And
Exactly.
they got mad at me for asking them every interview session. And so after a while, I kind of just stopped. And I was like, eventually they're going to fucking tell us. Maybe it's nothing. But that day, I remember Tyra standing in front of us and she goes, do you guys want to know what your prize package is? And we're like, yeah, like, can you hurry up? Like, that's all we've been wanting. And so she's naming off these things. And I think it's when she got to naming the agent and she said
Mhm.
next. And mind you, I've wanted to be a model my whole life. I have gone through the gamut of auditioning and casting for agencies and everything. And I know my agencies and I know their requirements. And Next does not have a petite division, nor did Next have a curve division. So the moment she said Next as the agency, I was like, okay. And my heart broke just a little bit. Just a
Mhm.
little bit. Because they always make exceptions. Kate Moss wasn't the average type either.
Sure.
But a lot of these people were working, so I was like, it just broke just a little bit. And then she goes on to say $100,000 from Pantene. And I was like, Pantene? Like the hair company? Like the shampoo and conditioner? And I'm just like,
Like,
I
really,
don't
bitch?
really, what is with shampoo and condition? Like, there is nothing. And so in my head, I'm just like, in my case, that would be false advertising. What are you going to do? Put shampoo and conditioner on a wig? Like,
Mhm.
no, and like no disrespect to Pantene, and it's an affordable professional hair care line, but
Yeah.
as a wig wearer and somebody who invests in like very nice human hair wigs, I would
Mhm.
never put Pantene on my wigs. And so for me, I was like, it just seemed a little skewed to me. And I was just like, okay, so there's Next and then there's Pantene. They want a girl that's tall and they want a girl that has hair. And I'm like, that's not me. It's just not me. And so I remember after that, I was just like, I'm going to stay here and continue, I guess, in the sense of like, I'm going to get my fucking pictures every week. And they're
Mhm.
probably going to keep talking shit to me. And I was like, this is when my character assassination kind of had already started, just like an episode or two before that. But I was like, this is when it really starts for me. Like, I kind of had an idea of what exactly they were going to do to my character. And so I
Right.
was like, okay, so I was a little more mentally prepared for it once that happened. And that's when I became carefree. And then America thought like, she's a bitch. And it's like, no, I'm not a bitch. I'm just reactive to the things that have happened that they're not ever going to show you guys. Like,
Mhm.
of course I'm bitter. Of course I'm irritated. They lied to me. They also lied to you guys. Like,
Right.
They
Exactly.
also lied about my height. The requirement in our contract says I think it's like 5'7.5" or 5'7" and taller. I'm not 5'7". I've never in my life been 5'7". But they lied even on my promo introduction and said that I was 5'7". I'm
Well,
not, but they did that because had they actually announced my height, I think other people who have auditioned who are short would have probably gotten really frustrated. But I mean,
mhm.
they introduced you guys to me off of a lie. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It just that it was a lot.
Well, talking about the prizes, so again, at the end we have you, Christiana, and Kyla.
Mhm.
And this season, no shade at all to Kyla. She's amazing. She's still working, all that stuff. She's awesome.
She's beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah.
very. This season was promoted very heavily as breaking the barriers. Like, obviously, Top Model as a whole was, but this season specifically, like, no height requirements, no body requirements, no age requirements, even. You had Erin on, who was in her 40s. And then it's you, Kyle, and Christiana, and you and Christiana are the ones that really kind of break the model mold. And Kyla is, I mean, she's like born to be a model,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
and or a standard model, I should say. And then Christiana gets eliminated, and it's just you two. Many fans were surprised that you and or Christiana did lose because of that messaging around the season. It's like, oh, well, you just picked, a standard model anyway.
Mhm.
Did did you think about that at all during the kind of finals, or maybe afterwards? Like, were you surprised by the announcement?
I think I was in a sense of, and again, I had let go of like caring at that point.
Yeah.
But it did shock me a little bit, I think, when I heard Christiana be eliminated before me, because to be honest with you, if it were anyone, and I mean, call it bias if you want, if it were anyone but me at that point, I
Hmm.
really felt like it should have been Christiana. And I had
Sure.
felt that throughout the entire competition, especially once they started my character assassination. I was just like, Christiana, I feel like she's got everything. She's curvy, she's foreign, English is not her first language. She's
Hmm.
different, like there's just her personality, just and she was older than like the typical age gap
Right.
even, so like Christiana fit into more of those brackets of those molds that they were trying to break than I think anybody. And so I was like, okay, for sure it should be Christiana. And when they eliminated her, I was just like, and I remember just looking at her and being so sad, and like I remember seeing it on her face, like how hurt she was and how confused everyone else was as well.
Yeah.
It was just very confusing. And I mean, I haven't necessarily talked to her since to like really, dig in her brain and see how she really, really felt at that point. I think a lot of us are traumatized. We don't talk about it when we get around each other anymore.
Yeah. That's
But I do remember seeing that she was really hurt. And then it kind of like dawned on me that like I was like, okay, so either I'm also going to be eliminated for the same reasons that she just was, or
hmm
it was very 50-50, or
yeah.
I'm going to win because I definitely don't fit anything. And I think we should have looked at the odds, but I think because there was two of us and Kyla, like I don't know why we didn't think about it that way, but I think we thought we might have had the upper hand as like the difference.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I was kind of
Same.
I was sad. I was definitely sad about Christiana. And then when it came to Kyla, for her, I was kind of just like, okay, well, you're 19 years old, you're a baby. Given I was only 23, just turned 24. So like I was still a little, like I was still little too.
Yeah.
But she was a baby, and I was just like, she has so much of her career ahead of her. And they could also look at that as a plus or a negative as well. And same with me. It could be, hey, this is your time, take it or not. But like even throughout the competition, I had heard, even at 24, that I was old, like left and right from people. And I'm like, you're telling me I'm old? There's a 44-year-old here. Like, there's a 33-year-old here. Like, what are you talking about? I just turned 24. Like, what do you mean? But I was like, okay, maybe I kind of fit into those brackets, but it kind of just, I honestly, I just didn't care anymore. Like, I remember telling, so I remember after Christiana got eliminated, they deliberated one more time between Kyla and I. And they sent
Hmm.
Kyla and I off into this room somewhere else.
Yeah.
We're just sitting there, and like they had said some crazy shit to me. And so I'm just sitting there on the couch in my own world. Like, and Kyla's like, well, I hope this. And she's just very hopeful. And I was just like, girl, I am tired. Aren't you fucking tired? Like, don't you want to go to sleep? Like,
Yeah.
I just didn't fucking care. And I remember when we walked back downstairs and they had us line up to walk back out. Kyla walked out first, but she was standing in front of me behind the curtain. And I remember tapping her on her back. And she turned around. I mean, she's tall, so she's looking at me down like this. And she's like, yeah. And I was just like, hey. And I was like, congratulations on becoming America's Next Top Model. And she was like, what? And I was like, congratulations on becoming America's Next Top Model. And
Hmm.
she was like, stop. You're only saying that because you want me to feel better. And I was like, no, I genuinely mean that. Congratulations on becoming America's Next Top. And they were like, go. And so Kyla, I kind of like pushed her back because we had to walk. And so I was like, go, And so she had to lead the way of us both going out. She couldn't say anything else to me at that point. But that was the last thing she heard was from me was congratulations on becoming America's Next Top Model. And so when we walked out and it was announced to her that she was actually America's Next Top Model, it didn't hurt me because I knew already. And I think for her, it was more of just like a wow moment and like, what the hell moment. Like for her,
Yeah.
you could tell she was genuinely like so happy. And I was genuinely so happy for her. Like she was so dumbfounded about what was going on. I was like, girl, hug me. Like, oh my God, you know? But yeah, I wasn't hurt by any of that. I think at that point, like, that's when I stopped crying. I stopped with the emotions. I stopped being mad. I stopped being angry. I stopped. And I think that's pretty obvious when I walk off that runway after Tyra gives me a hug and sends me off. I'm not crying. I'm not any of that. And it's very frustrating that the final scene that you see of me is me crying and saying, I don't want to talk about it anymore because that wasn't even what we were talking about. I was
Right.
fine with it. I thought maybe I could have won America's Next Top Model, but I didn't. Okay, cool. Let me go home. I don't want to sit in a room and talk about, you know, attempting suicide in a very specific moment of my life. And
Right.
when I'm bawling and telling you guys I don't want to talk about it anymore, you guys use that as the editing response to me being runner up. That's not at all what I said. So
That's.
that was like really frustrating. And I think that the two don't go hand in hand. Like to see me walk off the stage happy for her like that, and then
Mhm.
seeing me be crying like that, like I always, I'm starting to realize that the viewer is pretty dense. Like they're hard headed and they don't really always all the time put two and two together. And, I had to take a step back from some things and just realize that the audience, the demographic for this show is teenagers, people who are in high school, people who their frontal lobe has not developed yet. And that's just the truth. So I think when you become older watching reality shows and stuff like that, you're like, that's bullshit. She must have did this. Like you don't really think about it in terms of what's just shown to you to just believe that. When you're
Mhm.
younger, you do. So, to each their own with that. But I think that those two scenes, you put those side by side, they don't go together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. You came off very obviously happy for her, and I felt kind of like a pride and like relief kind of mixture in yourself. You're like, okay, I didn't do it, but it's over. I made it, on to the next thing. And
Yeah.
then obviously they cut to you, and that was not cool.
No,
Not
it's
cool.
not. It's not when they frame it around something so traumatic and
Right.
psychologically torturing you to get a certain response. That's where it became, as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, now I'm fucking mad all over again. And
Yeah.
that does to the audience now who's following me on social media, seeing me in New York Fashion Week. Now they think that because I responded that way about how I was edited, they're like, oh, you must be angry that you lost. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, no, I'm angry that they edited it like that. Like, but I
Right.
can't expect your sweet little brain to know
Yeah.
that.
Especially at the time when like we didn't know all this stuff that we know now because of NDAs and contracts and things like that.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
unfortunate. But kind of speaking to that manipulation and, side of things from production, moving to chat about the Netflix documentary,
Mhm.
I felt like they really skimmed the surface, other than a couple things, mentioning Shandy, a little bit about Tiffany, um, Kenya, things like that. they focused on a lot of like the little things that they got crap for, during COVID, like, oh, this person gained 5 pounds, or Janice said this mean comment, or something like that. And while those things are, not the nicest, they really skipped out on a lot of the stuff that we've learned recently, which is that like serious production, trauma manipulation, and using that kind of trauma from childhood to psychologically abuse you all for the most part, like things like that in your interviews. Did you ever experience anything like that other than obviously now we know at the end, kind of how they altered your reaction?
Yeah, there was a lot of that in terms of the topic of Playboy.
Hmm.
And I say this with the utmost respect to my mom. I did not have the most graceful childhood. My mom is an amazing woman, and she's clean and sober, and she's got her shit together, and she's amazing. But as a kid, she struggled with her own shortcomings. And I grew up in and out of foster care, and my mom had her own struggles with drugs and prostitution and things like that. And I've always had my own view on my mom in those ways. I'm very attached to my mom. She's my only living parent. She's the only parent I've ever had, to be honest. So I'm very attached to my mom. I'm very defensive about my mom.
Sure.
And so when the topic of me being sexy all the time came up, it was always attached to the narrative of prostitution and then slut shaming. And
Mm.
one thing about these shows that I always tell people is that they only know as much as you tell them. I wish I had known that in the process, because I probably wouldn't have given them so much ammo to turn it around and use it against me if I
Sure.
knew that they were going to do it like that. But yeah, they definitely used a lot of that childhood trauma, and like just the questions and the things that they would ask me. That they would say really degrading things about my mom to me. Um, to get an
So,
emotional response about certain things. And, I couldn't just run out of the room and go call my mom. They don't have a phone for you to use. So it's like when you
mhm.
need that little familiar voice from back home to just let you know things are okay, that wasn't there. So it was like they definitely use things like that. And I think as a kid, I mean, the first time I had dealt with trauma involving my mom in that sense, I was 6 years old. And I was little. I was 5, 6 years old, and that continued until I was 10. And so that is a really sensitive time, I think, especially for a little girl who's losing their hair, especially, and then doesn't have their mom and like things like that. I
Yeah.
have, I think, serious trauma from that stage and that time in my life. And
Hmm.
so for them to like use that left and right whenever they could, um, it pissed me off. Like, it really pissed me off. And it was more so that they were trying to put a narrative on me that my trajectory was falling in line with my mom's life and the things that I had dealt with, kind of. And that was not what my intention was going into modeling. I was just a model.
Right.
Just like everyone wants to tell me, oh, they shaved your head. Like, you have to be okay with change. Okay, well, sometimes they want you naked. You're supposed to be okay with that too. That's part of the modeling world, right? If everyone wants to justify that, then we need to justify that as well. And I don't
Right.
think it's fair to just attach the term prostitute or slut or whore to
Right.
the fact that someone is comfortable with their body and their identity. Um, and I think there's deeper rooted reasons for why people do that too. And it's not fair to turn that around and use it against someone. But I do think, within production, that there is a very dangerous tendency to minimize trauma because it happened on TV. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people. And, just because something was edited into entertainment doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't, deeply real to the person that was living it. And I think a lot of people have asked me about accountability when it comes to like this whole thing coming out. And I can attest to that fact that healing is definitely very possible for a lot of people, but I think that accountability is something that still matters, and using someone's trauma against them is a deplorable thing. It's not something that should ever be accepted. in any way, shape, or form, or just passed off as entertainment or accepted, like the abuse of trauma and your emotions and things that happen behind the scenes. I think I've heard a lot, you should just be so grateful for the opportunity. And it's like, I will never in a million years be grateful for unnecessary trauma ever.
Hmm.
I don't think anyone should. I really
Right.
don't.
Yeah. And I think there's that balance too, where you can be grateful for potentially the platform that you were given and your fans and followers that may not have found you before and being on the show and having that experience, but also being pissed and wanting change and accountability for all that trauma that was caused.
Exactly. And I mean, everyone's like, oh, you must have known this before you got there. No, no one knew this. That's the reason that you're all finding out now. Like, no one
Hmm.
knew about this, including girls who wanted to be on that show. And had we known about this, do you think that as many of us that have done it would have done it? Probably
Right.
not. I know that people want to attach a stigma that models are stupid, but we're not that stupid. And I don't think people voluntarily sign up to be abused.
Right.
So it's frustrating when
Yeah.
people say that you must have known, because I didn't. I really didn't, and I think because of that, I was one of, if not, to be honest with you, the very first girl to be like, you know what, I'm going to take a risk on my contract. And if they sue me for that $4.5 million, I guess I'll have to figure it out. But had I known what the fuck I know now, and one of those girls from previous seasons would have opened her mouth, I think that would have saved a lot of people from going through this. And so I
Mm.
was like, you know what? I'm going to take the chance. I like to challenge authority, So for me, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a chance and do this for everyone else who didn't get a chance to. And like, hopefully it doesn't come back on me. But if it does come back on me, they can use that as an example to not speak. But someone's got to take a chance to like put it on a platform where people care,
Yeah.
So I think I just went to my live and I was just like, you know what? There's so many questions. There's so many things that I felt so angry about because people didn't know, because they weren't showing it on TV. And I was like, I have to get it off of my chest somehow, some way. Otherwise, this shit is going to eat at me for the rest of my life. And I don't think that I would feel good with my soul and my heart if I didn't at least put it out there for another girl to see and potentially be protected, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And now we've seen so many come forward, so it's great that you did that. And I didn't catch your live, but I remember you dropping them on the videos on YouTube afterward, and
Yeah.
like the whole fandom blew up and was like,
That's so crazy. I went live, and this is at the time when like you could share it to your story for like 24 hours. And I remember
uh-huh.
I got thousands, and I'm telling you, thousands of messages saying, oh, thousands of messages from people telling me, oh my God, I missed it. What did you say? What happened? What happened? And then I was like, you know what? Let me just download these. And it took forever because it was like 2 hours long. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, where do I put it? Because I can't put 2 hours worth of footage on Instagram. And I was like, okay,
Mhm.
let me just put it on YouTube, because then people can go reference it whenever the hell they want to, comment, say every crazy thing that they want to, but at least it's out there and I don't have to talk about it again, at least not in that way. And I think,
Right.
it was still so fresh to me. So like when we're talking about this here right now, and I talk about, the moments that Tyra called me a prostitute or said I sounded like a prostitute,
Mhm.
or, any of those little emotional moments, I don't really get emotional about them anymore. I am so far detached emotionally from it because I've talked about it so many times. But at
Yeah.
the time, that was the first time that I had talked about it, and I was still so emotionally broken about what was going on, and it still all felt like it was yesterday. And in reality, it was really only, a few months after it had really happened that I made that video.
Mhm.
And I just remember like I was on a job. I was on a job in Orlando, Florida, and I had like a little break in between coaching models. And I was like, I'm going to go to my hotel room and just talk because I'm getting way too many questions and I don't know what else to do. So I sat for an hour and a half and did that. And I just remember crying and looking like a
Mhm.
hot mess at the end. And I had to pull myself back together and go coach girls in a ballroom. I had to redo my makeup and everything. But like, yeah, I was at the time still very emotionally tied to what had happened. And
Mhm.
those feelings, they're still there. Um,
Yeah.
still, hurt by a lot of things that have happened, but I think I've healed through the emotional aspect of it. And now it's just factual. And now I can think a little bit more clear and articulate myself a bit better in terms of what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I remember, just watching it broke my heart, and I remember crying while I was watching it while you were crying too, and it was just like, I
Yeah, I
can't
mean,
believe
my thoughts were all over the
this.
place. There was no structure, there was no questions, there was no nothing. I was just talking, and
Yeah.
that's all I could do at the time.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the best way.
Yeah,
So,
it was very cathartic, I think, for me. I needed to get it off my chest.
yeah. And you touched on this a bit a minute ago, but what do you have to say to those people who are like, well, you signed up for this, especially someone like you who is, you came the last season, obviously as a, big fan, I know that like, well, they didn't know all this stuff happened because of contracts and NDAs and stuff.
Yeah.
But as like a casual viewer, I keep seeing that still on social media today, and it drives me nuts. But what do you have to say to them?
Honestly, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. And honestly, if your dream was presented to you on a silver
Hmm.
platter in front of you, regardless of the stipulations that were attached to it, could you actually say that you wouldn't take a chance?
Right.
That's, I guess, all I can say to that. And I think the average person would take a chance. I think it's like Tyra
Totally.
was saying, hindsight is 2020, right? It's easy for, I think, a lot of these people to say that now. But a lot of
Hmm.
these people saying this are also the same people that if Tyra Banks called them and said, "Hey, do you want to be a contestant on America's Next Top Model?" They would cut off their left arm to do it,
Hmm.
you know? So
Absolutely.
I honestly, I pay those people no fucking mind. It is what it is. They're just talking to get a reaction at this point because,
That's true too.
you know, yeah, whatever.
Well, looking back on your journey on Top Model, what is one thing that Top Model took from you? And then on the positive side, what would you say Top Model gave you?
What did they take from me?
Besides shaving your head,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
besides taking my the little hair that I did have off, I would say that I think that they took. No one's ever asked me this question. um, I think I would say that they kind of took that like hopeful part of me, that innocent part of me that like didn't think that people baited your emotions and played off of your hopes and your dreams.
Yeah.
And I think that they stole that innocence from a lot of girls. It wasn't just me. I don't want to cry. My makeup's too expensive.
I'm sorry. Why?
No, it's okay. I just hope it doesn't look crazy.
You
uh,
still look.
thank you. Yeah, just that like hopeful, like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed version of myself that was just getting into the industry. I think that they took a lot of that from me.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think that they took away an opportunity. Obviously, I put myself in the situation. Yes, we know that. But I think that they took away an opportunity for me to just take my hair off. Like if I wasn't going to win and I wasn't going to be your America's Next Top Model and that girl that you felt fit into all that like difference and that oddity and whatever, if I wasn't going
Hmm.
to be that girl, you could have just sent me home. At some point in my life, I would have taken my wig off. And whether it came at a time when I could flourish in a modeling career or not, that would have been on me. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think that
Yeah.
they took a big part of me that I could have just grown through myself. And I think they sped up the process. And I think that in a way, it's kind of like playing God. And I think that they affect people's lives in ways that are unnatural. Um,
Sure.
yeah, so I think that part. And then what did they give to me? One thing they gave me was a fucking mouth and a platform.
Yes.
And I definitely use it. I know a lot of people hate it, but I don't care. um,
I love it.
yeah, they made me I think, very resilient. I think that
Hmm.
they definitely showed me I was a lot stronger mentally and emotionally than I probably thought that I was going into it. And
Good.
for that, I'm very thankful for.
Hmm.
Yeah. I guess that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Of
I didn't mean
course.
for you to get emotional, but
No, it's
I do appreciate
okay.
you opening up.
It's okay.
So, possibly another tough question, but I'm sure you've been asked this one before. If you could go back, would you do top model again?
I've said multiple different answers when people have asked me that. And I think it's your process of elimination and your thoughts, and where you're at mentally with like the acceptance of what really happened.
Yeah,
I used to say that I would, but I would just do it differently
sure.
if I knew what I knew now.
Yeah,
Now, that's obviously not possible. But knowing what I know now in full, no, I wouldn't have done it. I would have just thugged it out, shaved my head at home, had to walk outside and have everyone tell me, "Holy shit, you look like a fucking model. What are you doing with your life?" And I probably would have had an insane fashion career had I not had the stigma of America's Next Top Model attached to me.
sure.
So I don't think I'd do it again. I couldn't. Not after knowing what I know now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, after watching this Netflix, documentary, it's very clear that people's careers were genuinely stolen from them when they didn't
Hmm.
have to be. And I hate to say it, but I feel like I'm one of those girls too, and I don't appreciate that. I wish I was just strong enough at the time to just shave my own head and just do it. I wasn't. I wasn't at the time. Eventually it would have came, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that's valid. I mean, you still have done some amazing stuff in your career, so
Thank you. I
it's
have.
worth it, at least a little bit.
I have. I definitely have done
Yes.
some major things. I mean, I did Victoria's Secret swim as a ball girl. Like, I'm very proud of a lot of things that I've done. Yes.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of
Amazing.
things that I never thought that I could. That's for sure.
Mhm. And I think you've done it for yourself too, not or kind of in spite of ANTM or without that attached to you. Like you've done it yourself. So that's even more amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely been a huge part of it. I love when people tell me no. I love when people put a roadblock because, like, if I can't go in, like, around it, up, down, under it, like, I'm going to dig my way through the ground and go through it. Like, at the end of the day, I will find a way. I will always find a way to get to the other side.
Yeah, I love that. So we talked about Tyra's lack of accountability
Mhm.
a little bit with the documentary. And we saw that obviously didn't happen with most everything, if not everything. What would it take for you personally to either forgive or kind of move? I don't want to say move on because that makes you sound like you're harping on it, but
Right.
move on, I guess, from the situation and forgive Tyra or be like, okay, it is what it is. Would it be residuals for you all? Would it be her helping you all with this kind of protections for future reality TV contestants? Would it be a handwritten letter or email saying, I'm sorry? Do you even have an answer for that?
I don't,
If she could even do anything.
to be honest with you, I don't think that there is anything that she could really do. I think
Mhm.
she's given the most minimal verbal apologies to girls, never to their face, but still on a national platform, and it's still not enough. And to be honest with you, there's multiples, like there's a big group of us that are, challenging laws right now to put in protections for reality TV stars. And I can't say that any of us would want her hand in that pot directly. I think we're sick of Tyra tainting
Valid.
things that we're
That's
involved in. And so I can't say that we would necessarily want her help. Um,
Yeah.
I guess she has been a bit of help in terms of being the perfect example of what not to do.
Mm.
Um, and a perfect example of how not to take accountability once you've hurt people. Um,
Yes.
so,
Absolutely.
to be honest with you, I don't think there's anything she could do. I don't want a note from her. I don't want a DM. I don't want an email. I've tried to DM her actually,
Hmm.
and she just left me on scene when I actually called out to her for help and told her about some abusive things that were happening behind the scenes. And this is fresh after my finale had aired, or maybe it was during. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But she intentionally turned a blind eye to it. So, like, for her to now, all of a sudden, if she sent something to me, like I could wipe my ass with that girl, because that apology or whatever you're gonna say, that is 8 years past due.
Yeah. Completely, yeah.
So, I don't know.
Uh,
I don't think we want anything for Tyra from Tyra at this point. I think Tyra should learn from this. She should learn something from this, just like she told Tiffany. I think she should sit down, and I think that she should stop taunting girls, stop harming girls' lives. I think that she was retired at one point, and I think she needs to stay retired and sit down and stop affecting the industry and people, the next generation of people coming into something that is so different than the world, the toxic world that she comes from, because that's clearly the mindset that she lives in.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think she should just call it quits.
Yeah. Well, that partially answers my next question. At the end of the documentary, she kind of teased that there would be a cycle 25, and Nigel Barker, Mr. J, and Miss J were all kind of like, whoa, we didn't know that, when that was teased right ahead of the documentary. What do you have to say about it?
Um, oh goodness, there's a lot to say about that, to be honest. Yeah, no,
Yes.
it shouldn't happen. And honestly, if after all of this comes out, Tyra even still has a significant enough amount of people that want to participate in something as toxic as that, then, to each their own. But also, if contestants have seen if future contestants have seen all of what we're talking about and they still pursue something like that, at this point, now that people have spoken and it's not buried, it's not secret, after this point, those people who are like, oh, you should have known, they should have known. And I never
Yeah.
thought I would say something like that, but you know, you're setting yourself up for failure at that point, unless what this group of top model alum is doing right now can come into play before that happens, and they can further, be protected. But I have a feeling this is going to be a long journey for us, and we don't care. But as far as cycle 25, and she said we're going to do things, what she say, a lot differently or something like that.
Yeah.
How
Something.
differently? Because we're comparing contracts from cycle 1 to cycle 24, and there is no difference. There is quite literally no difference. If anything,
Wow.
the contracts have gotten tighter.
Hmm.
So I just don't see that coming to fruition unless it is potentially a cycle of all influencers, potentially.
Yeah.
Or maybe the show and the reparations that come from the things that we have been talking about, maybe the show can be ran by past America's Next Top Model people. The panel of judges could be past contestants on America's Next Top Model, past winners, things like that. I think that would be a good start, is to put people who've been in their shoes in the authoritative positions to now mentor and lead these new people. I
Yeah.
don't even know if I want to say that to you out loud, because I know Tyra is she's a vulture. And I feel like she's going to hear that and be like, oh my God, that's a good idea. Let's do it like that.
Yeah.
Um, but
And then she won't pay you again.
right. I definitely wouldn't be on the show. I don't think she wants to be in the same room as me ever again. But yeah, that would kind of be the one and only way, I think.
Okay. I would be curious, like, what platform or like streaming platform or channel would even take that on.
That's another thing that I've noticed that people have been asking, is like, what platform would even take her up on a cycle 25? And I can say from past experience, the reason why a lot of people are like, where can I even watch your cycle? Well, good luck, because I've even had difficulties finding my own cycle, and it's because they have licensing issues. They've gone from UPN to CW to MTV VH1, which is Viacom, and then there's things on Pluto, and then there's things on Hulu, and then there's things on Amazon Prime. And I think the licensing issue is
Hmm.
causing more of a stir for them than anything. So we're not able to actually access some of our seasons. So
Right.
as messy as it is already for cycle 24, how messy it has been for us, I don't see cycle 25 getting like a clear shot at a good network. I feel like she's going to be back at square one, where she's calling up UPN to revamp themselves.
Yeah.
Put on for cycle 25.
It's like, I'll start UPN myself. Like, we got to do
Yeah,
this.
exactly. I mean, she might as well create her own network at this point, because I think that that's probably the only place that it'll be
Yeah.
accepted.
And when you said like who the heck in the industry would even want to be a part of it at this point with all the news, I was joking or chatting with a fan, another fan, and we were joking like she'll probably have like James Charles and Diddy and like all these horrible problematic people as judges because they're the
Oh
only
my
ones who
goodness.
would like
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the only way that show could
yeah, it's
thrive.
just
Yeah. All the toxic people in the industry who have made asses out of themselves.
yeah, for sure. Goodness. Well, moving on from the Netflix documentary, you have your own documentary that you're starring in on E coming up, Dirty Rotten Scandals. There is a three-part series. So ANTM is the second part, I believe, on March 11th.
Mhm.
So you're featured in that. What can you tell us or tease us about that?
Ooh, to be honest, I don't exactly know what to expect because just like with everything else, we're watching it with America.
Of course.
But one thing I do know is that there is the most unfiltered stories
Mm,
being told in that documentary. There's also, I could be completely wrong, but at least 4 winners of America's Next Top Model involved in that series. I think that that is really important when it comes to a lot of this because I feel like a lot of the voices that have been heard so far in other documentaries are, people who just had horrific stories, but they maybe didn't go that far, or the
mm,
audience didn't see them deserving as winning, but their trauma or whatever happened to them was like impactful.
yeah.
And this is very much not the case in ours. It's not about losing. It's not
Hmm.
about winning. It's just about what the hell happened to us. And I think when people hear it from winners and people who didn't lose, I
Hmm.
think it's digested differently to the audience. So I'm very excited about that. And then one thing I do want to point out that I
Hmm.
don't think people are really wrapping their heads around is that last year there was a documentary that came out on Vice TV called The Dark Side of Reality TV,
Hmm.
which featured Lisa D'Amato, myself, Sarah Hartshorn, Angelia,
Hmm.
and Janice Dickinson. And then a few psychologists and, old producers and stuff from America's Next Top Model.
Yeah.
The Netflix series doesn't have any of those people.
Right.
We weren't asked, and not that we think we deserve to be in it. It just never came up for us, right? Okay, now with the e-documentary, Lisa, Angelia, me, Janice, plus all these other winners, Joanna, Jasleen. I mean,
Hmm.
there are so many people, but
Yeah.
correlation of Tyra and Janice not being on the same documentaries, and also Tyra refusing to be a part of any documentaries that Lisa and I have been a part of.
Mm.
I think that that stems from obviously her lack of wanting to take accountability, but I want to know, what is it? There's got to be a reason that she's running from the documentaries that are actually brutally telling the truth.
Right.
There's something to be said about that. And I'm not quite sure exactly what it is yet, but I'm excited for everyone to see the e-doc. I think that it's going to be pleasantly surprising, probably fairly emotional. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't think that there's going to be any coming back, and definitely not a cycle 25 after this documentary drops.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah. Well, I'm excited to watch it, even though, like you said, I think it'll definitely be emotional. I teared up watching Lisa cry in the trailer. It'll definitely be an intense but important watch, I think, for a lot of fans.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yes. Well, also talking about the present and the future,
Yes.
I did want to share with our listeners who may not know that not only do you model, but you also have your own wig company, wig line called House of Anomaly.
Yes,
And I would love for you to tell us more about that, how people can support you and purchase and all that stuff.
oh my gosh, yes, thank you. Yeah, so I actually created House of Anomaly during COVID while everyone else was struggling. While you guys were all binge watching America's Next Top Model, I was creating a business. So yes, I create. Well, hold on. This process has changed. So I used to hand
Okay.
make them. I now outsource that part. However,
Mhm.
I customize wigs, hairlines, hair colors, cut, everything, hairlines. And right now I'm focused on women's hair. Um,
Mhm.
and women's hair replacement. However, I am kind of starting to branch into the world of men's hair replacement because I know that that's like so necessary as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big part of my world. Although I'm very much bald, I still love hair.
Yeah.
Hair will always, regardless of whether it was shaved off or not, hair will always be a huge part of my life. So I didn't see myself never, doing something with hair. So this is definitely a passion project for me, but something that I really have put like my heart and my soul into. And, I know what that world of, losing your hair and not having someone care about what
Right.
you're putting back on it feels like. And so I
Hmm.
wanted to, step into that space and, be that person for people. So yeah, I spend a lot of my time making wigs, and my hands are very sore and crampy a lot of the times. But yeah, that is a huge part of my life.
I love that. Awesome. And what, I mean, what better person, like you said, than you to do it? You are so passionate about it and obviously are a user yourself, so it
Thank
just makes
you. Yeah, people always ask me on my Instagram, like, "Oh my God, where'd you get your wig from?" If they see me in a wig, and I'm like, "I made
sense.
it. I made
You
this
for
one.
me.
Did it? Yeah."
I love scrolling through your Instagram and seeing all the different hairstyles and wigs and stuff, in addition to your bald head, of course, because it's so fun to like see you kind of have your different like sides of yourself and things like that. So
Yeah, I love
it's awesome
hair. I'll always be playing dress up for the rest of my life, whether I'm a model or not. I will always play dress up.
for sure. All right. Well, before we end, is there anything else you want to share or talk about or anything like that? Where can people follow you, find you? How can they support you?
Ooh, yes. I mean, nothing else I could share. I'm just living my best life being a mommy. If you want to follow me on social media, and you can follow me on Instagram at Jeana Turner, TikTok at Jeana Turner, Facebook Jeana Turner, YouTube Jeana Turner, everything Jeana Turner.
Perfect. And I will be sure to tag you and share all your links and all that stuff in
Perfect.
the description as well. So
Perfect.
thank you so, so much for opening up. We really appreciate
Yes.
it. And I've loved talking with you. Of
Thank you, Brandon. I had such a good
course.
time.
Good. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.